let's begin with, I talked a little bit about your history and what, when I first saw your video, I mean, I contacted you immediately. We spend billions and billions of dollars on a drug war of basically, I mean, taking away weeds that, you know, grow out of the ground and forcing us to spend billions and billions of dollars a year on pharmaceuticals that, well, they're not natural, they're man-made, they poison and dumb down the population. I mean, do we need to talk about Ritalin? We just had a show on that a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to shut up now, and why don't you tell us about how you came to this revelation?
Okay, well, first of all, I know that it's shocking to a lot of people to hear that the American medical system is the #1 cause of death in America. I also, when I read that, it shocked me, even though I was already well into not believing anymore in modern medicine. Just to see that was really, it jolted me. But that's according to the medical field's own statistics. So that's not something that that's not even something that an anti-AMA person dreamed up. That's if you look at their own statistics. And you were talking about the drug war. Well, the truth is, and I liked what you said about going after people who are growing things out of the ground versus and making people pay billions of dollars for prescription drugs. I don't advocate abusing any kind of a drug. However, if you look at the statistics, prescription drugs kill a lot more people and are even highly more likely to kill than street drugs. And that was another one of those things. Yeah, I think it's about 280,000 a year just in the United States alone. That's prescription drugs there. And how many people all throughout history has marijuana killed? 0. Well, as I said, I'm not advocating that anybody use any drugs. But, of course not. I'm just pointing that out. The track record for prescription drugs is really horrible, and it's pretty scary, actually. Also, when you mention that statistic, you're talking about the number of people who died from drugs that were considered to be appropriately prescribed. That's not even including all the medication errors that go on. That statistic that I mentioned it includes the people that die, and people are not even aware of this, that every year hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying not because of mistakes. We're not talking about medical mistakes. We're talking about this is according to medical protocol. The thing is, what I've noticed is that they can't really make a plant illegal unless, you know, I mean, obviously marijuana they've made illegal, but instead of making the plants illegal, what they do is they destroy these companies that have really good products. Now, the #1 best-selling health drink in the world, I won't say the name of it, but it's no good. It causes liver failure because it's so concentrated, and whenever I talk to somebody who's taking it, I always tell them, stop drinking it, and a week later they'll tell me, I can walk up the stairs now. Oh, yeah? Okay, you know what? You can type it to me, and then I'll say it. I'll say it. Okay, it's called noni juice. Noni juice, and a lot of people... I was going to ask you about that. That's no good? For anybody who likes to juice, it's much more important to juice vegetables like green leafy things than it is to juice fruits, because if you juice fruits, again, you're not going to have all those fibers that are going to help your body to digest it slowly, and it's actually going to raise your blood sugar too quickly. You're going to have an insulin reaction because your body is going to compensate by creating way too much insulin, and then not only are you going to get very hungry later from that reaction, but it could also contribute to diabetes. So a lot of people think, well, it's fruit juice, it's good for me, but fruits are really meant to be eaten in the can, you know what I mean? Like in the way it's packaged, you should eat it the way it's packaged. Vegetables you can juice. Wow. So is that, so you're saying that juicing, you know, putting fruits in the juicer isn't good?
It's better to just eat the fruit itself and get the fiber the way God made it.
Right, the fruits. Now, the vegetables, I highly recommend juicing, but the fruits is not healthy. It tastes good. I mean, when I used to have a juicer and I made fruit juice, and I was very disappointed when I read all this information about what happens when you drink fruit juice, but I was really pleased. I mean, there was nothing that tasted better to me. I used to, especially strawberries. I used to juice all sorts of fruits, but it's actually not healthy in the long run. It's really not a good idea, and it's going to make you very, very hungry afterwards because your body's going to be engulfed with insulin, and then you're going to have to eat. So what happens is it's like a sugar rush from a candy bar. Your body makes all the insulin to digest all that sugar, and then afterwards you're left hungry and crashing, and your blood sugar is low, and that's why you've got to eat. Anyway,
that's true. Well, what about juice? Not juicing it up. What about the concentrated ones, say like out of a jar, a can, or frozen?
Well, anything that comes out of a can or is frozen is not going to have any nutrition. And also anything that, and it's going to have dangerous additives as well, food additives that you really don't want. But also the concentrated ones, if you get something at the store, so they tend to add sugar and a lot of things as well that you're not going to want. If you're buying fresh fruit juice, the truth is that the moment you juice the fruit, it starts oxidizing, which means the nutrients start to die. So if you're going to drink fruit juice anyway, despite what I said, go ahead and have some every once in a while, but you're much better off if you buy some oranges, take them home, and squeeze them yourself, because then you're going to get real nutrition and you know what's in there. Whereas if you buy it at the store, between the time they squeeze the oranges and the time you take it home, it's already dying. You're much better off doing it yourself. If you don't want to buy it, you can buy it. I agree.
Well, it's kind of like my grandmother taught me at a really young age, if you can't pronounce it, keep it out of your body.
Well, you definitely don't want to put anything in your mouth that says diet if it contains aspartame or NutraSweet. That is bad stuff. It's been linked to seizures. There are a lot of women who had multiple sclerosis. Most MS patients are women. Obviously, there are men that have MS as well, but when they're told to stop taking in NutraSweet, there are a number of people who recovered. Not all cases. I know of cases of people who aren't on diet products and they have MS anyway, but that's also a chemical poisoning. There's something that's causing that. We'll talk about some of the possibilities a little later about autoimmune disorders, but all these autoimmune disorders where the people's bodies are attacking their own tissue is coming from different poisons and chemicals that are being put in the food and water. What happens is then your body doesn't recognize its own tissue, and it seems like it's an enemy, it's something foreign, it's like a foreign body, because the chemicals are lodged in the tissues, and then the immune system starts attacking the tissue. And that is where autoimmune diseases come from. But if you're diagnosed with one like arthritis or fibromyalgia, and you go to and your doctor, if you ask him, well, what causes that? Why is this happening? He'll tell you, we don't know. It just happens. Well, that's not true. There is a reason for it, but they don't know. They're not taught. And of course, there are a lot of reasons why they're not taught. But the long and short of it is they don't know. And sometimes you have to dig into these things yourself to find out what's really causing it. But I want to mention that what we were saying about prescription drugs earlier, it really does concern me that a lot of people think just because a doctor prescribes something that it's different and less harmful than illegal drugs just because of who's selling it. And a lot of the hardcore street drugs were originally manufactured in pharmaceutical labs. I'll bet you don't know who first created heroin. Can you tell me?
Who? I can.
Bayer,
wow.
Like Bayer aspirin, they were the first ones to create heroin. So think about that next time. If your doctor tells you to take a prescription, you might want to look into the drug. But actually, I want to.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't advocate using drugs either. But when you look at the statistics on how many people die, we'll speak America alone on we already talked about how many deaths on prescribed drugs, but illegal drugs, not even close to that. I mean, not even a fraction or a percentage of that.
That is exactly right, and that's what I, of course, studying pharmacology, did not understand. But also, if you just look at the number of people per year that die from prescription drugs, number of people who die from pharmaceutical drugs, from illegal drugs, of course the number of people taking prescription drugs is much higher, therefore the number of people dying is going to be much higher. But the fact is that the prescription drugs are actually more likely to kill because the chemicals the way they affect the body are that dangerous. And the way that medications work, they actually stop the body from doing whatever it's doing in response to too many toxins in the body. The reason people get symptoms and diseases like headaches, people these days, they think it's normal to walk around with low energy and with a headache every once in a while. That's not normal. That's your body trying to tell you something is wrong, do something about it. So what people do these days is they cover it up by taking an aspirin or all the different drugs that they have for headaches. And what's really happening, let's say a person has high blood pressure. So the reason they have high blood pressure is our bodies are incredible. They have innate intelligence. They were made by design, and they know what they're doing. When a person's body constricts the blood vessels, creating high blood pressure, it's because that person has so many toxins in their body. Toxins is just the medical term for poisons, is really what it is. So they have so much poison in their body that their body's desperate to get rid of it, and it constricts the blood vessels, trying to get it to circulate and get out of the body faster. Now, if it was safer for that person to have lower blood pressure and keep the toxins, the body would not have raised the blood pressure. The body is much smarter than we are, and it knows what it's doing. So what does a blood pressure pill do? Well, a blood pressure pill doesn't take care of the problem. The problem is not the high blood pressure. The problem is that the person has too many chemical poisons in their body. So the blood pressure pill relaxes the muscular walls of the arteries. Therefore, it causes them artificially to open up, and then the person doesn't have high blood pressure anymore. But what about all the toxins that are in there? So they haven't even addressed that. When people get diseases, a disease is just an accumulation of toxins in whatever part of the body that the disease is manifesting in. That's exactly what a disease is. And in modern medicine, the different parts of the body have been broken into systems, and every doctor you see specializes in a different part of your body as if it's not one organism, but it's so much one organism. Every part of your body is connected to the rest of it. So the body, we need to learn to listen to it. If you're experiencing symptoms, if you have low energy, that is typical of somebody who has too many toxins. You don't want to keep on going down that road. You need to take more water. It's very important, and people don't understand. If we don't get the essential nutrients that our body needs, then our bodies, the mitochondria, if we think back to biology class and we learned about the mitochondria in the cell, it's their job to clean out all of these chemical poisons from our body. And every time we eat, drink, or breathe, literally these days, in this day and age, we know that we're taking in chemical poisons. That's the reality of the world that we live in today. So you're taking in all those poisons. If you're not getting your nutrition, then the mitochondria cannot get rid of all that poison. And what happens is the mitochondria start to break down, and you get low energy, premature aging. Those things are a result of the body not being able to get rid of all those poisons. What I was just saying about the drugs, they shut down the body. People who take blood pressure pills, it's very common for them, after the body has been forcing the blood vessels open and then they're holding on to all those toxins, it's very common for them to end up with diabetes, and then the doctor says, oh, now you need another pill, and one pill leads to another.
That's my mom right there. You just described, like with the not. you know, she started with the headaches, then the heart disease and diabetes, and now she's almost dead, taking like 14 pills a day, and she really honestly believes she needs them. And on top of that, now taking psychotropics because she honestly believes that she has now a mental imbalance.
I'm really, really sorry to hear that, but it's very typical. So many people, you know, we're taught not even to question the doctor, to do whatever the doctor says. If something's wrong, the first place you're supposed to go is, did you see the doctor? Yeah. Why not? Go make an appointment. And then, you know, who are we to question the doctor? You know, like he can walk on water or something.
Yeah.
And the truth is, they don't know. They don't realize that they are really hurting people and that they're shutting down their bodies. But that's exactly what these chemical drugs are doing. They're designed to stop the body. And this is crazy. Why would you stop the body from reacting to poison rather than, you know what I'm saying, when you could take nutritional products and eat healthier?
That was my childhood. I was in and out of the hospital. I mean, literally, it was a 911 call at least once a week. I was getting breathing treatments, allergy shots twice a week, everything. But ironically, when I got pregnant and quit going to the doctor because it went away.
Well, this is what I'm starting to learn. I'm learning about, well, for instance, I'll give you an example. AZT is supposed to be the magic drug for AIDS, right? That's what they give AIDS patients. Well, right. So AZT, I found out actually that it was spread through the homosexual community very quickly. The news that once people with AIDS were put on AZT, within days they were in bed. They never walked again. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, you know, the truth is I did work on an AIDS unit, and that is the truth, but nobody stops to think that it's the drug. Everybody thinks that it's AIDS, right? I mean, and I can't begin to tell you how common this is. It's scary. It's so scary that I was so brainwashed, and that there are millions of people, patients, doctors, nurses, that are so brainwashed that they never even stop to think that this guy was walking and he takes this pill and 3 days later he's in bed. Of course everybody thinks it's the AIDS because it's like mass hypnosis to believe that whatever the doctor says is right.
This is incredible. What other, I mean, you talked a little bit about cancer and chemotherapy and just...
Chemotherapy is actually a chemical weapon because it was derived from mustard gas. Mustard gas was designed to kill enemies at war, so we shouldn't be surprised that it actually kills the patients. And it's deadly. Now, every doctor knows that it kills. You know, there have been a number of doctors that when they were diagnosed with cancer and they were told to take chemotherapy, they refused. And there's a good reason for that. Yet they, you know, all along would have advocated it for their patients. But when they were forced to think from the other side and they thought, you know what, I really don't have many patients who made it through chemotherapy, then they decided that's not the road they wanted to go down. But what's really sad is that the American Cancer Society has done a really good job of suppressing natural cures for cancer. For instance, they don't go after noni juice because noni juice, there are some people who say it helps me with my, you know, arthritis or this or that. But if it was working anywhere near the one that I was involved with, they would have gone after it years ago, and you would never hear about it again. But they only go after the ones that really work. And then the ones that cause harm to people, for some reason they leave on the market because they really couldn't care less. Actually, they probably say...
it's about money.
They probably also see it as, you know, well, eventually we'll end up with those patients because they're going to go into liver failure. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I've seen enough to know that they think that way.
Yeah, and then create a drug for that. Oh, cool. And then they make even more money that way.
Well, the American Cancer Society has ties to chemical companies, pesticide companies, drug companies, radiation equipment companies, people who make radiation equipment. They are the wealthiest nonprofit organization in the world. And, you know, I wouldn't be against anybody for making a profit at whatever they do, but they're making a profit by selling people on the idea of getting cancer. the reason I say that is, for instance, when they tell women to get a mammogram every year, from the age of 40, I think it is. It might be higher, maybe 45. So the breast tissue is very dense. In order to do a mammogram, you have to use high levels of radiation. So what do you think is happening? Don't we all know that radiation causes cancer? And chemotherapy also. Breast cancer has increased far faster than any other type of cancer. Why is that? Well, all these women are going in there once a year and paying to be filled with all these high doses of radiation, and they're giving them breast cancer. I mean, the rate of breast cancer didn't start to go ballistic until they did that. And there are people, of course, who get breast cancer that never had a mammogram. But a great portion of them, it's a matter of them being given by the system itself that says they're protecting them, being given the breast cancer. The American Cancer Society also advises people to avoid the sun, but the truth is the sun, from everything I've read, does not cause cancer. The sun actually prevents 77% of all cancers, including lung cancer, breast, and brain tumors. And, let's think about this logically for a minute. If the sun caused cancer, cancer would have been an epidemic for the last thousands of years. It's not the sun that's creating cancer.
No kidding. We would never have been able to reproduce. We wouldn't be here today.
Nobody stops to think about these things. But the truth is that the sun, not only does it prevent it, by getting enough sun, you can decrease your risk of cancer by 77% minimum. But not only that, the sun is even a successful treatment for skin cancer. So all these people that think that all this skin cancer is coming from being in the sun, it's actually helpful to go in the sun if you have skin cancer, and it prevents skin cancer. It's one of the cancers it prevents, actually, is skin cancer. Sunscreens, what we're told by the American Cancer Society, we need to use sunscreen, wear a hat, and, cover up and don't go out in the sun. And sunscreens actually have cancerous chemicals that go right into the bloodstream. And the lotion, as soon as you put it on your skin, it's absorbed into the deeper levels of the skin, and then underneath the surface of your skin, it's reacting with the sun to cause cancer. And then that leaves the top layer of your skin exposed to the sun anyway.
Oh, I'm glad I'm too lazy to put on sunscreen. Cool.
It worked in your favor, because what happens when you put on sunscreen, not only is the top layer of your skin exposed anyway because it soaks into the bottom layers, but your body is then blocked from absorbing the sunshine and creating vitamin D. And vitamin D is what protects you from the sun's ultraviolet rays. So you're out there in the sun, and you're not able to create vitamin D, and there goes your 77%, reduction in risk of cancer. Now you've actually increased your risk of cancer quite dramatically by all those factors, chemicals that cause cancer in the sunscreen and blocking your body from making vitamin D. It's astronomical what happens when you use sunscreen. Your chances of getting cancer are going to be much higher. And people who live in areas where they promote sunscreen, ever since they started promoting the sunscreen, the incidence of cancer has gone up much higher. And areas that don't use sunscreen have lower. And then if you look at the areas of the world, obviously, where people are far from the West and they live outdoors, they're always out in the sunshine, they have some of the lowest incidence of cancer in the world. So this whole thing about the sun causing cancer, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. There was
you said something interesting on your website also about how Western medicine was developed. You said, although many people are waking up to the fact that drug companies are suppressing natural cures and seeking to destroy many forms of natural healing, most are unaware that Western medicine was developed by Wall Street bankers and Nazis whom they brought into the U.S. in the 1930s. Oh, that's interesting, because that's when all of a sudden those weeds that grow out of the ground all of a sudden became dangerous.
medicine in America, what happened is they went through a couple of revolutions, and the first one was in 1906, and the drug companies at that time did not have a stranglehold on the FDA or the doctors yet, but what happened was these doctors, they started seeing these Chinese medicine doctors that were coming from China to America, and these Chinese medicine doctors were 100% of the time curing people from drastic illnesses, and the doctors wanted to learn what they were doing. They were just feeling a person's pulse and using acupuncture and Chinese herbs and healing them. And this was incredible to them, so the medical doctors started to get involved in this, and the drug companies, of course, saw that this was going to be lost revenue for them. So they went to the FDA and they kind of made a partnership. So a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people think the Food and Drug Administration in America is really, they wouldn't approve anything unless it was good for you, and they run so many studies on all these drugs. Well, you have to think about it. Who's paying for the studies? The drug companies pay their own researchers to do the studies, and they have total control over the research that's being done. It's completely corrupt. And the FDA, over 90% of scientists who work for the FDA go on to work for the very drug maker that they approve drugs for, making six figures. So they have a big incentive not to say no when somebody wants to approve a drug. I mean, the whole thing is so corrupt. So when they went into business together in 1906, that's when the FDA started putting chiropractors in prison, and they did the same thing with all of the people who were practicing Chinese medicine, and they told the medical doctors, you either go to 100% allopathic medicine, which means prescribing drugs for every treatment, or you're going to end up in prison. And there were doctors who started prescribing drugs, but they were also doing natural things on the side, and they ended up in prison. And it got to a point where they cracked down so hard that we have the situation we have today. So that was in 1906. Well, then in the 1930s, they actually did bring top-level Nazi officials. You know, Hitler, when people think of the Holocaust, they always think of Hitler. Hitler was just a front man. Hitler didn't personally have the money to be able to do what he did. He rose to power because there were people behind him who were financing him. They were financing him, and they were financing both sides of the war. It was the military-industrial complex. I know your listeners know a lot about what I'm talking about. The guys who were at the top, the ones that were the real conspirators, were given Red Cross visas, snuck out of the country, and they were brought to, some of them were taken to Switzerland, but a number of them were brought to the United States, and they were given top-level positions with the U.S. government, and they are the ones responsible for water fluoridation because it was first done in Nazi Germany, and the Russian soldiers did it as well because they knew that it helped make everybody passive and dumb them down. It lowers IQ. It's been proven since 1922 at least that fluoride lowers IQ. And so they have really helped to shape and mold the monster that we have today that we call modern medicine. And really the idea of using mass chemicals on humanity, which Western medicine is now, that's what it's all about, came from Nazi Germany. And that's why doctors, you remember doctors used to go make house calls in the old days, and they would look at a person's symptoms, and they would say, well, you know, it must be your thyroid. And they could tell by listening to what the person's symptoms were and looking at their body. Doctors today, they
or
just
their
look at the
eyes even, or just looking in someone's eyes.
Their tongue and the fact that they have low energy and what chemicals have they been exposed to? Are they drinking tap water? Doctors don't know anything about that. They don't think about it. I mean, doctors, after they finish school, the majority of the information they learn is from medical journals. Well, those medical journals are filled with advertisements from drug companies, and that's why the medical journals initially, you know, would not print natural cures for cancer. Now it's actually illegal in the United States for them to do that, thanks to the American Cancer Society.
It's illegal?
It's actually against the law to publish a natural cure for cancer in a medical publication. Not only that, But
oh my gosh.
The media, if a reporter wants to report on anything involving cancer, if it has the word cancer in it, he must submit his story to some type of an organization that was set up by the American Cancer Society and the U.S. government. And it's basically a desk with several guys who get paid 6 figures a year. And if it makes the cancer treatments, the conventional cancer treatments look bad, which of course if you have cancer, the only options your doctor is allowed to give you are chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. And chemotherapy and radiation, as we've already covered, both cause cancer. So what are your odds of getting rid of cancer using things that cause cancer? I don't know. But that's all.
So wait a minute. I thought we have free speech and freedom of the press, and you're telling us that reporters have to register and go to this group to get their article approved? So that's why we never hear about it in mainstream media, because obviously they're not going to approve one's article that tells the truth.
Well, not only that, but you have to look at the number of drug advertisements that run during the news in the United States. I mean, it's really obscene. And because the news agencies are corporately owned now and monopolized, so, let's say you are a drug company and you're paying millions of dollars to CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, to run your advertisements. You're not going to be happy if they report that 15 years of medical research has shown that cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease. In fact, cholesterol is a healthy sign. And the cholesterol drugs are killing thousands of people a year, and they're very dangerous. And long before people die, they always focus on this is how many people die from this a year. You have to remember what happens to them before they die. What about the people right now that are living with it? There are people who are losing their minds and can't remember, where they put their keys and start having serious dementia because they're taking those cholesterol drugs. And the cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease. It's glucose and fructose that is being used as food additives. Now, why, in addition to the fact that they're running all these advertisements for cholesterol drugs during the news channels, on the news channels, why, in addition to that, would the media not want to report the true cause of heart disease? Well, because they also receive millions of dollars from General Mills and all the food companies who are putting the glucose and the fructose in their products that are causing the heart disease. And as we already said, fructose, when you take sugar out of a fruit, when you take the juice out of the fruit, it's going to cause the same insulin reaction as regular sugar. So there are a lot of people, when they read a label, they think this product is all natural. It has fructose. Fructose comes from fruit. It's fruit sugar. It's healthy. It's not true. It's not only going to cause diabetes, it's causing heart disease, but you probably don't know that if you watch the mainstream media, which tells you that it's all about cholesterol. Cholesterol is a reaction in the body. Again, it's just like with the blood pressure. Your body is making the cholesterol to protect you because you have inflammation. We have this explosion of disease in America that we didn't have before. You know what? When I was a kid, we'd never heard of Alzheimer's. I remember Dan Rather sitting there explaining what Alzheimer's was because nobody had heard of it. It was brand new. And then you would hear it twice a week and then 3 times a week. Before you knew it, everybody had Alzheimer's. It was normal. And we think of it as, well, it just happens. Nobody knows why. Well, why don't we think back? Just, 30 years ago, nobody had heard of it. That's not normal. And in addition, as I mentioned, processed foods have these addictive additives that literally kill brain cells. It's called excitotoxins. Excitotoxins, it's called that because it makes the brain cells excited, which is why you want to eat food because it gives you this excited feeling in your brain. And it makes the brain cells get so excited that they end up killing themselves. Literally, they start bouncing around. They literally self-destruct and die. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable that this is what's going into the foods, but it is. So really, we have to supplement. I've got some products that I've really looked into. I don't ever walk into a health food store and buy anything there, because anything that's mass produced, like a lot of the vitamins that you buy off the shelf, do more harm than good. They have ingredients in there that are the same ingredients that are in glue to hold the pills together. First of all, a pill is never going to be the most natural thing. I have capsules that I take, but the capsules are produced that it's so natural, and I know what's inside of it is a powder. So and it's been processed not using heat. You know, there's a lot that goes into what I take that I know that the life is still in the plant. There are people that are terrified when you start talking to them about taking something natural, because they say, well, I like to know what I'm putting in my body, and I don't know what's in this. Listen, if you've been drinking coffee in the morning and eating processed foods, the last thing you should worry about is taking a plant. Seriously, if you knew what was in the stuff that you've been eating all day, you would never make that comment. That's how they've been brainwashed to believe that natural medicine can be dangerous, when I don't call it medicine at all. I call it natural healing. I refuse to really use the term medicine, but people have been programmed to think that it's, you know, snake oil, or that it's dangerous and it could kill them. But we're talking about a vegetable. We're talking about plants. So basically, medical school today is a place to go to be brainwashed by the drug companies. When the drug companies, when the medical students go to lunch every day, they have this huge buffet, this huge spread, and every table is sponsored by a different drug company. I mean, I just can't begin to tell you what a hold they have on these students. From the moment they walk in the door at medical school, they are being trained one thing and one thing only, and that is to laugh at natural medicine and to promote drugs.